treat, trick or treat.
Well, you make sure you say thank you.
Ooh. Mrs. Rose didn't get a good one at all. What did she give you? Apple.
Bobby, stay with us.
This is Adrian. He's a paranormal enthusiast. He was a paranormal investigator for the IF Paranormal Group based out of Portland, Texas, back in 2005, I believe. Man, we had some great times, though, investigating. What was your thoughts about those times?
Those are probably some of the best times we've had, especially I would say my youth. Always like going out to places because every time we heard about it,
You're kind of cutting in and out.
I think those were probably those were awesome times. Actually, now that I started.
And some of the evidence that we caught, man, it seemed very viable, very, very legit. There was a couple of EVPs and stuff like that we had caught over at the McCampbell House over in downtown Corpus, and I kind of disregarded them because there was a whole bunch of us there until there was that one night where me and another guy, we both were sitting there doing an EVP session, and next thing you know, we get a third voice, and it's that same tone voice asking, who is he? That was that one dude's, that one dude's first time ever going over there. I posted the EVP out on YouTube. One of my biggest things is me, I've always been a very nostalgic type person. And watching The Conjuring and those movies, I love those movies, by the way. I think The Conjuring in itself is a great franchise. It's a one hell of a franchise. It's because it includes The Nun, the Laona, the Annabelle, of course. Everything's all included. The one thing I do believe that is included into the Conjuring series is a movie that I had seen back in 1991 when I was young, and I was living in San Diego at the time, and it was a TV-made movie called The Haunted. Now, this movie was the first movie based on any investigation conducted by Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, for all those paranormal people out there, we all know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are, or were. They were basically the grandparents of the paranormal. But the movie itself, it was a TV-made movie. I don't know if you had ever seen it, or you may have heard the Smurl Family Haunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm familiar with the movie and the haunting because I'm familiar with the movie first, but then after, as we started doing paranormal investigations, then I started learning of the Warrens, and then come to find out the connection between that case and the Warrens.
Yeah.
So once I learned that, that's when I started actually looking into more of the, because obviously based on that, one of the Warrens investigation. Once I actually learned about all of that, that's when I kind of started looking into more of the, because when they make the movies, they obviously Hollywood it up to an extent.
Yeah, they do.
So I wanted to figure out, I just wanted to get some of the facts and what was, what happened, what was the difference between the movie and stuff like that.
Right. They went through I know the Smurl family, they had gone through a lot of criticism, of course, because they did have multiple different priests go in there. They'd stay the night or a few nights and stuff like that and not experience anything. But these people for, 15, almost 20 years had been experiencing paranormal stuff happening. And, for anybody who understands what the paranormal is all about, they would know that within the paranormal, if you have a case like the Smurl family, and this is what I believe, you have a case like the Smurl family where it's one of those cases where we as investigators may go in there and not experience anything. We might be priests and go in there and not experience anything. This may be a haunting solely aimed towards them. To deny any type of credibility of what they're experiencing is kind of kind of messed up if you really think about it. I'm not saying that they're telling the truth, and I'm not saying that they're lying, but I just don't see a normal Catholic style family who, just living the American dream, being, just a normal American family, and just making up a whole bunch of stuff like this. It doesn't make any sense. What would be their end game? Was it fame? Because they didn't really claim a whole lot of fame out of this. I mean,
No, not at all.
Especially not then. Nowadays, there's a lot more stuff about the Smurl family that I've seen, but not back then. Sure, they got some headlines and stuff like that, but it wasn't going to last. From what I understand, this entity or something had followed them to their new home as well, too. So I don't know when it all ended for them.
Yeah, because I think they actually would try to, if I remember correctly, I think they would even try to go camping, and they would still have events that would happen when they traveled elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean,
so it seemed to be linked to them rather than simply focused on a location.
right.
Which is pretty interesting.
And I also see, it's like I was saying, I see that this could have been a demon or an evil spirit of some sort that could have been just severely linked to them, and definitely playing games as far as staying quiet around priests and stuff like that. I'm not discrediting the Warrens. They've got a lot of very interesting cases that they've done and experienced. I mean, look at what they did at the Amityville house. I mean, that famous picture of the little the spirit of a little boy on the I believe it was in the attic or on
Upstairs or something like that.
Yeah. So it was strange. Who knows, really, right? I mean, but it is a very interesting case, the Smurl Family Haunting. I know the father, Jack Smurl, he had passed away back in, I believe, just a few years ago, 2017 and stuff like that. And some of the stuff that they've experienced, Ed and Lorraine Warren, they both experienced a dark mass forming in the house and stuff like that. But some skeptics, and foul odors and furniture moving, and the typical cliche stuff of what you would deem as a haunting.
Scratches, if I remember correctly, a lot of scratches. So
Yeah.
I think when they got the house, they got it new, or at least it was in great condition, and they did a lot of refurnished a lot of things in the house, and I think one was the bathroom, and then at some point they heard a lot of noise. And I think it's both. There were times where they wouldn't hear anything, or there was a lot of loud noise, and then they would go in there and there were scratches. Some wild animal was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand. I know, for example, if we would have gone in there, we would have investigated, we would have looked at the skeptical side first and try to weed out all that stuff out of the way. Because, if we're talking about scratches from animals and stuff like that, I would have kind of more than likely deemed it as an animal. Because here on the roof of Will's World here, sometimes I'll be working on a video or something, and I could hear what sounds like squirrels running by on the rooftop here. So I don't know.
It's kind of one of those. You have to look at things objectively, because you can't automatically say, well, this is a spirit or this is a demon, because you do have to have that objective mindset to be like, is this and can it be? Now, it's like when you're looking at stuff like that. Now, I mean, you're in agreement, Will, because whenever we do these things, you would agree. Mm-hmm. One time is one thing, but when there's a pattern, because the scratches were actually a pattern, because the scratches would eventually end up on the people of the Smurl family.
Yes.
And they started seeing it correlating to when events happen in the house.
Yes.
If something happened in a room, then they would see scratches along the walls and on the ceilings.
Yeah.
And then, so you kind of have to, you balance that objectiveness to stop and kind of look and say, well, all right, in this situation, if they're refurnished a house, why would they trash their bathroom?
Yeah, exactly. What would be the objective of that,
What do they gain from that?
Yeah.
Because I think for the longest time, they didn't go public till after the Warrens got involved, if I'm correct.
Right. Because, see, if I'm not mistaken, for anybody who's ever followed the movie, this is kind of basically in very similarities to what the book has stated. And, what the actual interviews have, been stated by the Smurls themselves, where the Warrens, they were questionable about going to the media about it because they didn't know what else to do. I mean, they've had priests bless the house and everything. They've had the Warrens investigate, and the Warrens told them, warned them, hey, look, you go to the media, can be a huge backlash against you. And sure enough, there was a lot of, they were harassed left and right by not just by the media, but by just people themselves, just coming up there and just throwing bricks into the windows and stuff. It got to the point where both the father and the grandfather had to stay out there with their guns to protect the family, but it was a thing that they knew of the consequences, but they had to get it out there because they didn't know what else to do. You're getting haunted for Pete's sake, you're experiencing all these crazy things happening, but and
I think the severity of some of the events, because some of them were unfolded.
Oh yeah, look, you had the father. He proclaimed in his statement that he was sexually assaulted.
Several times actually.
Yeah. You had daughters. I think one of their daughters, if I'm not mistaken, was thrown down the stairs or something like that, and their dog was thrown into a wall. Yeah.
The chandelier almost killed or fell, and it was big enough to kill the little girl.
Yeah. And this isn't like some kind of home intrusion, from some burglars or something like that. This is like some supernatural stuff. So what else can you do?
I think after they went public, if I remember correctly, once they went public, that actually I think that's when they got more attention from the church to actually, because I guess there was like a mixture, because there wasn't, I remember it's been saying there was a priest who was helping them, but eventually after all that, they actually sent like a bigger entourage of priests to conduct a more formal exorcism, if I'm correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a more formal one. They needed, because I like you said, I don't think that they were. I don't think the church was actually taking it as serious as they should have.
If I remember correctly, and I've seen this a lot with a lot of the paranormal investigations, when you have like major, almost poltergeist-like activity or very hard presence of any type of, I wouldn't say demonic, any hard and almost physical force of like a haunting of some kind, and a lot of times people are hesitant, there seems to be like hesitation on the church's part, and usually that's always the same thing. Well, we have to actually go up very high channels to even be able to do these types of things, like exorcisms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think several times I'm hearing like Vatican level and stuff like that. It's kind of like, okay, which is kind of common. And I think even, I don't know if you're familiar with Father Malachi Martin, he mentioned that too.
Yes. Yes, he did.
Yeah, they'd have to go up through a lot of channels. So I think once it went public and it became as high publicity as it did, that's when we actually saw that actually getting pushed to do something.
Because the church, they had to push harder when the media stepped in. These are church-going people, Catholic-based family. They needed to jump the levels to be able to actually go in there, and they did. With this case, it's very strange because it's one of those where, as an outsider, as a person that is hearing about the story for the first time, I understand where some people may think like, well, these people may be full of crap, but you got to kind of understand too, in the paranormal sense, there are hauntings out there where the spirit only stays, or only basically does its haunting towards the family and will not interfere with others. It will keep itself concealed and only reveal itself to the person or persons that it's haunting. And it's one of those things where I understand why it'd be hard to believe, for something like that to happen, but it has happened. There's plenty of cases out there that, has taken place where it's happened like that, where, and it hurts the family that's actually truly experiencing this because nobody believes them. It's kind of like what happened with the Lutz family, you know, out of Amityville, the famous case of the DeFeo murders and stuff. And when that family moved in, what was it? I believe a year after or so. They only lasted 20-something days. Now, why would a family go buy a house, a big house like that, live in there for 21 days, don't even really renovate it as much, you know? It couldn't really do much renovation on it, and then just leave 21 days later. Remember that house, which was, I thought it was very strange. It kind of reminds me of, why would a family just ditch everything and leave? Remember that house over there in Portland? Remember how all the stuff was still there?
Yeah, they looked like there was food still on the table.
Yeah.
I think we found like a pet snake, like the skeleton.
The skeleton in its little aquarium cage or whatever it was. Yeah, it was the strangest thing. We found family pictures still on the walls, the furniture, everything. Just it was as if the entire family upped and left. Didn't take anything with them, just upped and left. Why? I've tried to look into the information on what happened to that family, but I can't find nothing. Now that house is completely torn down. I mean, it's completely gone now. But yeah, it's a strange case, of course. I mean, but as far as like the Smurls, it was basically the first paranormal case that I've truly have gotten into, you know, since I was a young kid. Now I remember watching shows like Unsolved Mysteries and stuff back in the late 80s. That's how old I am, bro. You know, I watched their stuff, but when the Haunted came out on TV, I was like, wow, this is intriguing. And you know what's so crazy too, and I'm not trying to judge Hollywood and stuff, but man, I tell you what, that movie, The Haunted, and I recommend this to everybody to give it a shot. It does not have the Hollywood, what do you call it, the Hollywood touch like you see today's movies. I mean, you can definitely tell it's a TV made movie, but some of the stuff that they have on there still scares the crap out of me, still gives me the chills, man. It is unreal. And I would hope in the future, with The Conjuring being such a huge franchise now, that they consider on doing a movie, a more updated movie of the Smurl family. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed on that, because that is one hell of a case to actually try to learn about. I mean, it's a really good case to learn.
This swing set? Oh, it's beautiful.
Janet? I'm in here, Mom!
I got you!
Mom!
Wait!
Janet?
Wait!
I'm in the kitchen!
Wait!
Mom? Janet?